Oh, Sue is connecting.
Okay. Move this over. Oh, and Daniela's coming on. Okay, I'll give it one more minute. Every time I think I'm going to start, somebody else logs in. There's Miss Sue.
Hello, everybody.
Hi,
Hi.
Sue.
Hi, Sue.
Gosh, I look red.
Well, have you been out in the sun?
Yeah, but I've been putting stuff on my face. I don't know what's going on. I will mute myself now.
Hi, Sue.
Okay. Should we get started? We've got Daniela and Norma.
Hi, Jen.
Hi, Taye. How are you?
Good.
Let's start with you since you're unmuted. Will you tell everybody where you're calling from and your GWIM? Taye muting herself. Let's see. All right, I'll come back to you, Taye. Let's see, Amelia, our faithful student.
Hi, good evening. I'm Emilia from GWIM 67 from Indonesia. Sue, deep condolence for your father.
Rita?
I'm ready.
Oh, okay, Taye, go ahead.
I'm Taye Agbontai from Nigeria, 66 GUN.
Welcome, Taye.
Thank you.
Rita?
Hi, Rita Basi Ede, Join 55 Nigeria.
Welcome, Rita.
Join you.
Uem?
Hi, everybody. I'm Uem from Nigeria, GWIM 68.
Welcome, Uem.
Thank you.
Nin?
Hi, I'm Nindya from Indonesia. I'm from GWIM 66.
Welcome, Nin.
Hi.
Ira?
Hi, Doreen.
Hi, I'm Ira from Indonesia, JWIM 57. Hi, Sue. My condolence for you, for your loss. And Jen, happy birthday.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ira. Is that you, Doreen?
Yeah, it's Doreen.
Hi,
Doreen
Doreen.
from Mozambique.
So good to see you. Welcome.
Thank you. Me too.
If your
I've
connection,
been struggling.
You've been traveling. Okay. If your connection is bad, sometimes it helps to turn off the video, but right now it looks good.
Okay. Thank you very much. I've been struggling all along to get through, but luckily today I'm in. Thank you.
You're in. Yay. Good. Welcome. How about Norma?
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Norma, and I'm from WIM 40 from Mexico. And sorry, Sue. My condolences.
Lots of love here. Thanks, Norma. How about Elizabeth?
Hi, everyone. My name is Elizabeth. I'm from GWIM 64. I come from Papua New Guinea. Sue, love you so much. Happy birthday, Jen.
Thank you. Katerina?
My name is Katarina from GWIM 58 from Indonesia. Hi, Sue. And happy birthday again, Jane.
Thank you. Hola, Daniela.
Hi, good morning for everyone. I'm from Mexico. My name is Daniela, and I'm from GWIM 63.
Nice to see you.
Nice to see you.
Tobin.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Sopriye Tobin from Nigeria, GWIM 42. Thank you.
Welcome. And Miss Nancy.
Hello, everyone. My name is Nancy Inyaduru. I'm from Nigeria. I'm from GWIN 68. I'm happy to see you.
Nice to see you. Welcome. Ooh, and we've got Tia connecting. Let me give her a minute. Who else? Let's see. Tia, can you hear us?
Yes.
Welcome.
Hello.
Which GWIM are you and where are you calling from? Tia?
Yes.
Which GWIM are you?
Yeah.
We're doing introductions. Where are you calling from?
I'm calling from the Central Sulawesi. It's the mid part of Indonesia.
And your
With the
GWIM?
Yes.
Which GWIM group?
From GWIM 66.
Welcome. Thank you. Who else? Did I miss anyone? I think I've got everybody. Oh, Chezi, which is our great introduction into our case. Let's see. Go ahead, Chezi.
Hi everyone, I'm Chezi from Mozambique, from WIM 68, and it's so nice to see all these faces. Usually, so yeah, hi everyone.
Nice to see you. Okay, stay unmuted because you're up next. Let's see, I just wanted you all know Ketty, of course. And by now you know Noor. And of course you know Sue. And then our guest speaker today is Derek Hodke, and he's our Chief Operating Officer here at Counterpart. And he's gonna be participating in the discussion and then also doing a presentation at the end for us about crisis management. So to get started, Chezi has a really interesting case for us that's quite appropriate for the topic. Let me pull it up on the screen, and she's going to briefly go over it for us. Can you see that? Okay, let me just make my screen.
Yes.
Great, perfect. Okay, go ahead, Chezi. Can you give us an overview of your situation? And then if everyone recalls, once we've gone over the case, we'll open it up for some clarifying questions before we move into recommendations. Go ahead, Chezi.
Okay, hi everyone. As I said, I'm from Mozambique, and I work in a small NGO in Cap Delgado, which is a province in the northern part of the country. The question that I brought today for us to discuss and hear your opinion is about how we can, our organization can recover from a context of war. Maybe I'll start from the beginning that we work on the operational areas of water and sanitation, agriculture, health, and of course, gender. What we usually do is to provide private water to rural communities, as well as promoting the vegetables production and the other intervention on health, such as malaria, and also, of course, sanitation. But we started the year of 2020 thinking that it will be a year of success. We had everything almost planned. We got the means, and we were there to continue with our work. But unfortunately, in the end of January, our headquarters was attacked. It was an armed attack because in this region of the country, there are military insurgents that they call or identify themselves with the Islamic State. But the situation is that the region where we work was attacked. We lost our office, and we lost all the material we have acquired for many of the activities in 2020. We also lost our vehicles. So it means that we don't have any infrastructure or place to work right now. And we also lost part of our water system, as many people from the places where we work, they also flee because of war. So now our challenge is how to continue. Does it mean the end of our activity and our work? Of course, at this point, me as a manager of the organization, I'm also worried because I know for sure that I won't be able to assist my colleagues that have also lost their houses and everything. I won't be able to assist them financially, and by June, after June, it won't be possible to assist them. So now I clearly don't, I can clearly say that this is an organizational and programmatic issue, because first, I don't know how we will do with these co-workers, because if we are considering that maybe it's better for us to leave the conflict zone and work in another places of the country. But the challenge is what to do with those people who are working with us. And it's a very critical period that we were wishing to continue supporting them. And in terms of organization programmatic issues, we were thinking that maybe instead of continue working where we are, we can change the site of implementation, but keep the object of our work and also the profile of our beneficiaries. And it's also challenging because maybe now Cabo Delgado is also the province that has been most hit by this outbreak of COVID-19. It's a province that has more than 74% of cases. So we are also thinking, can we also use this as an opportunity to keep our co-work, as an opportunity to look for funds and keep our co-workers in Cabo Delgado employed? But it would mean also a slightly variation or change in our programmatic issue, but we also consider that can be integrated on WASH. And in terms of the resource that we have now, I would say that we are zero, and the savings that we had, we are using to pay salaries for the co-workers since January, when we lost everything. And we only have one long-term donor. Of course, we have presented this situation to this long-term donor, but they didn't give us a formal answer yet. I guess they are still pondering or considering the situation. In terms of vision, what we envisage now is that it will be possible for us in the future to keep doing our work, having our family together. By family, I mean our co-workers still with a job, and that we could use this misfortune as an opportunity to reach more areas in the country, and also give more opportunities of jobs to other people in other parts of the country. And when we talk about reaching more other different areas of the countries, because in the issues that we deal with, which are water and sanitation, agriculture and health, and we work in the rural areas, are also common in other parts of the country. But we were working in Cabo Delgado because it's there where we established ourselves in the beginning. And maybe there's something that I missed is to add that on top of this situation of war in the province of Cabo Delgado, the situation of COVID and all, this is also a province that has been severely hit by a cyclone, the cyclone Kenneth last year. And now it was a period that people were starting to recover, even those that were in the settlements were starting to go back to their regions of origin. But now with this outbreak of the armed conflict, the situation is worsened. And I guess it's everything. If there are questions, I can try to clarify. Thank you.
Thank you, Chezi. That was great. So I'll pull the case down so we can better see each other. But just to recap, wow, what a difficult situation that Chezi's primary work is in an area of the country that has been hit by cyclone, by war, and now by COVID, making it quite difficult to work there. And is wondering how she can recover, how her organization can recover and either meet the needs in that community or perhaps expand her work to other regions so that she can keep her staff employed and since they've been paid out of their savings since January, but she only has enough to get through June, right, Chezi?
Yes, yes. And about the co-workers, maybe it's to say that it will be easier to work with them if we continue in Cabo Delgado. But if we go out of Cabo Delgado to do this move of people, it will be difficult because maybe we won't have enough funds to cover this, because in terms of extension, our country is very long in the regions.
Great. I think you said before that most of your staff is from that region as well, so they're invested in that community, correct?
Sorry?
You said, I think you said before on the other call that the staff is primarily from that region?
Yes, yes.
Okay, great. So let's open it up to questions. What do you need to know from Chezi before we can give her some reflections or advice? If you have a question, go ahead and raise your hand or unmute yourself. Okay, Doreen?
Mine is not a question as such, but a comment. I'm glad that I'm meeting my colleague today on Sky, on Zoom here. Yeah, I also come from Mozambique, but on the other province. And my province has not been affected by COVID. We don't have any case, but every day we're receiving cases of increase of infections in Cabo Delgado, where my colleague is working, and it breaks our hearts every day, breaks everyone's hearts, and there is too much war, like she said. We are also heartbroken every day, looking at news, seeing people being killed and people losing property. And it's one of the provinces that have our natural endowment, which is gas and oil. So economically, it means it's one of the provinces which is so vital and significant to our country, especially in economic development. And we were also happy because ExxonMobil as well is also working in Cabo Delgado and is also supporting women economic development. But when the situation is like this, it becomes very difficult. So it is just a comment to add on or beef on to what my colleague is saying from Mozambique. Hi, Chelsea.
I'm glad we'll introduce you offline too. I'm glad you're meeting each other. That's great.
Yes.
So thank you, Doreen. Just reiterating that the area has been hard hit and that companies like ExxonMobil have an interest in that region because of the gas, and they're interested in women's leadership. That actually brings up a question for me, Chezi. Are you currently working with ExxonMobil? Are they one of your donors?
Well, right now, no. The intervention we had with them was closed last year by.
Okay, you do have a relationship with them, not only from coming to GWIM, but you've worked with them on a project. Okay, that's good to know if they have an interest in the region. Okay, Nancy, you have a question? Oh, hold on, let me unmute you, hon. You're muted. There you go.
Okay, I want to find out from Chezi about the staff, the members of staff. Do they have any skills that are sellable? Any sellable, maybe digital skills? Do they have something else they can be laying their hands on? Do they have any digital skills at all that they can use to raise funds for themselves? I just want to find that out from.
Great. Okay, so tell us about the skill set of your staff, Chezi. Do they have other skills that they can either use for the program or that they could to support themselves in other areas?
Well, they do, the skills they do have, I don't know how can I say, but they are basic, because when I talk about staff, I'm talking about those who are the fixed payment list. They are plumbers, they are welders, and the community development instructions, or by that I mean those who have a training on agriculture. Yeah,
okay.
This kind of stuff that I'm talking about.
Great. So these are like field staff who have the labor skills, plumbing, construction, agriculture.
Okay. Because specialized staff we don't hire, we just hire on when we have need for the determined projects. So yeah, that's it.
Great. So they're project staff hired as needed. Okay. Good question, Nancy. What other questions? And I think, Chezi, last call you said you have 14 staff, is that right?
Yes, 14.
14 staff.
But maybe because I will spell it, it's 14, that is 14, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. You got it. Okay, Nancy has another question.
Okay. I want to also find out from her if they have any kind of social enterprise they have already engaged in. Apart from the money that they get from donors, do they have any sort of social enterprise services, anything they offer to the public that can yield any amount of money at all, that can bring in funds for them, apart from the main donors? I just want to find that out.
Nancy, you and Princess are on the same page, because Princess wrote in the chat, asking if there's any social enterprise that could be considered so that it's not fully dependent just on donors. Do you currently, or have you in the past had a social enterprise, Chezi?
No, we don't have, but what we have been doing since by March is to, although paying them salaries, but they are not working because there is no place to work, and when they do work, only limited actions, is to encourage them to start over in the regions where they have been, where they fled to.
So your staff, you mean?
Yes.
Or, yeah. So you're continuing to pay them even though they can't work, and you're encouraging them to find work in the new regions that they've fled to.
Yes, not by work. I don't mean work where, I don't mean a formal work like where they did have in our organization, because that is also very difficult nowadays there. But they can provide services. This is what we have been encouraging, so that they can start small business for them. Them or explain to them that maybe by June, if nothing changes, we will not be able to keep them. So
Okay, so you're being upfront with them, you're being transparent and honest about the reality of the situation and encouraging them to find other employment opportunities and take on other projects as they can. And then it sounds like in terms of a social enterprise for the organization, that is not and has not been a current funding opportunity for you. So maybe we can, if people have thoughts on the kind of social enterprise that might work for CHESI, that can come out in the recommendations, things that you've seen that fall within the WASH area in particular, since that's the mission of her organization. Maybe that would be helpful in the discussion. Any other questions before we open it up? Derek.
Thank you. Chezi, I was thinking about this since we talked on Monday, and I was wondering if you've had opportunity to find out what other organizations are doing in this region where there is all this, unrest because of war and COVID and so forth. When you think about your network of peers, of organization leaders, have you had any opportunity to discuss with them any shared learnings or experiences in terms of how they're helping to navigate their organizations through some of these difficult times?
Oh, yeah. Since Tuesday, I tried to contact 3 people, and 2 of them replied that they're not having activities on the ground. They're not going to the districts. They're only in the capital of Cabo Delgado, which is Pemba. And we also has scheduled meetings to discuss, and so that I have opportunity to explain what we have in mind. If they can, I don't remember the word, if they can take part of this stuff, right. So I can recommend them. But I didn't get the chance to discuss that with them, but I approached at least 3.
That's great.
Now that it's difficult to find people on their offices, so we just ring them if it's possible, or even send an email, and the connections here are another story also.
Thanks, Chezi. So in our call on Tuesday, this case was presented as well, and one of the discussions and recommendations was the idea of partnership and coordinating with other organizations trying to work in the region so you can take advantage of limited resources and your niche and perhaps partner on things. So that's great. And just in the 48 hours since we spoke, that you've already been able to reach out to some and assess who's working there. So that's the first step. Good. Other questions, or should I open it up? I'm sure other questions might come up as we discuss. So let's go ahead. If you have a thought or a recommendation, something that you've seen that might work for CHESI in your countries and situations, please feel free to share those. You can raise your hand or. I know some of you have been in situations. There's a lot going on in this case. It feels a little bit overwhelming, I'm sure, Chezi, this particular region. I think you've already hit on a few ideas that you're already considering yourself. One is to, maybe see this as an opportunity to expand your work to other regions and still stay in close contact with your mission, stay on track with that. But that since COVID involves hand washing and wash is so important, it's still very relevant. So maybe there's new opportunities there. Let's see, Nancy.
Okay, can you hear me, please? I can't see myself here. Hello?
Hello, yep, we can hear you.
Okay, Chezi, you have a lot of experience. And right now, there must be some, how you can divide and monetize your experiences online. For instance, people right now are learning from home. They are learning from their homes and they're willing to pay. You know, the internet space is very large. They can do some recordings. Maybe you want people that, if there are people that would like to learn about WASH projects or about community development or the kind of work you do, there might be some aspects of your experience or the aspects of the knowledge that you have that you can monetize. In fact, the point I'm making is that maybe you can monetize your knowledge online, so that you build a kind of online presence where people would want to learn from you at a very minimal fee, so that all those other people can also contribute to it. It will give you online presence, and it will get people to know exactly what you're doing and maybe the challenges you're facing, and as well you can be making some money. We at our own organization, we're trying to look at ways and areas we can make money online, because everybody is online right now. So one of those ways is monetizing your knowledge or going on a particular, a specific area and dwelling on it so that people can connect with you and contact you for consultancy, even if you're not in the country where they need it.
Great, Nancy. So I get Nancy's suggestion is that maybe there's a way to monetize your experience and create or expand your online presence, and even as a consultancy in WASH in the country or outside of the country. Great, thank you, Nancy. I'd like to hear more about this this social enterprise. What do people think of that? That came up from a couple of you. So what are some things that she might consider in terms of a social enterprise for her organization? Any thoughts?
Well, social enterprise is actually supposed to be environment specific. I'm just thinking, I don't know if I can compare Mozambique with the context that we have in Nigeria. So, but if there's conflict in their area, apparently farming or trying to own a farm may not be possible. But for us, we try to own farms. We own some farms, cassava farm, you know, so that whatever happens, we can sell our farm produce and they get some money out of it. Another important area we have been considering and which we started doing is authoring books. Like when you author books, e-books, you sell them online at very minimal price. Just authoring books, you can sell them minimal price. Then converting plastics to you know, like waste to wealth management. Those are the three I can think of right now. While in the course of the discussion, if I have any other one, I can.
So thanks, Nancy. So Nancy's saying one might be in agriculture. In her case, they do farming and sell the products for a profit to bring in some money for the organization. Recycling plastics is another one, and then also mentioned selling books and things on information online that people would pay for. I'm trying to think of Amelia's model that you brought up in past calls, Amelia, where you all are selling training material, but then also when you're giving the seeds away and using WhatsApp for training. I'm wondering if there's something there in a WASH model. Chezi, you've heard that model from Amelia before, yeah? Do you remember?
No.
Amelia, do you want to explain a little bit?
Yeah, you can see in our Instagram through Puspina Swadaya, I will write in the chat room that we have free training for community, free training for our partner. And we take their products such like a masker, and then we give to our customer when they buy the seed, when they play tree, we give them for free. Also, we have a program for free for community to planting, to you know, the aquaponic, hydroponic, and we give them for free because we know that community really need to start the new or to continue their life. And we, from the small thing, we try to help them.
Thanks, Amelia. So it's meeting the food security need of helping people learn how to farm at home, right? You're providing the seeds, but then when people buy your training material, they get a mask that has been made and provided for them. And then, are you doing the hand sanitizer as well?
Yeah, hand sanitizer too.
So I was thinking maybe something with hand sanitizer would fit very nicely with wash or soap production, you know? If there's a way to engage your staff in making soap and then selling that for a profit, does that anything like that sound like it might work for you, Chezi?
Yes, of course it sounds that it may work, because in terms of the proposals that we are doing nowadays, we include this component of soap production and also masks or face shield visors is what we are considering now. And also the production of those wash buckets. What we are researching now is how we can have an easy and affordable wash bucket that has pedals, so people don't need to touch the tap. This is what we are working on lately. Of course, we put that in our proposals, but we are also considering in which way we can do it with the resource that we still have.
Yeah, of course. And I believe someone posted in the shared folder a video of that bucket that you were talking about, that the no-touch washing.
Yes, but we are still consider very options and see the one that would be more affordable for us, so that we can reach many, we can provide them as a community services and reach many areas. And this goes in line with what I said in the beginning, that maybe, well, that what we were wondering is maybe that until the end of the year, if our main donor allows, we will divert the funds that we have for other wash activities to answer this one in the context of the COVID.
Yeah, relying on the donor's response, yeah.
This last days were when discussing what are the most affordable options that we can use, also researching on those that are known cost and the community can produce them themselves.
Yeah. The model that we were discussing at the beginning of the call before we started with Elizabeth in Papua New Guinea, the group there has been asked by a large energy company, a school, to produce masks. And so the members of the organization are sewing the masks, and then they receive a portion of the profits, and then the rest goes to the organization so that they can buy soap and materials for the communities that they work in. So it's a matter of kind of striking that deal with the big enough company, and then having the materials, you know, available with that money to produce the masks, setting the right price point. That's interesting.
Jen?
So, yeah? Oh, go ahead.
Dulce had a question in the chat for Chez.
Yes, I'm that thing now. Not yet. We didn't contact Total now. Not yet. Only Exxon.
Okay.
Okay. Is Total a company in country?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Yes, in the past it was Anadarbo, and now we Total overtook and is there now.
Gotcha. So that might be a company. And here Amelia gave some more information that they provide training for free using IGWA for our partners in SE. I don't know what all these mean. We buy masks for them, and when our customer buy, we give them for free, and we also provide free training via Zoom. From now you got from your sponsor. Good. Dulce, do you have a question or a comment? You had your hand.
Yeah, no, I just want. Yes, hello.
Hi.
No, I just wanted to tell Chezi that I do understand what she's going through. We've been watching a lot on Cabo Delgado on TV. And unfortunately, not even the government knows what to do with this situation right now. It seems to be getting worse and worse. And now I think Afungi is the hub of the COVID-19. So you are facing very, very big challenges. I just wanted to tell Chezi to try Total, the old Anadarko. They have funding for women empowerment and community development. So I think if you can maybe design, I can give you some contacts of the key people. Then you don't have to send randomly, but if you can maybe come up with a project that is sustainable for this time of crisis, let's say maybe production. Hello?
Yep,
Can
we
you
hear
hear me?
you.
Because my internet is, yeah. Maybe masks or little bags or like soap. I heard people talking. They tend to give funding for small initiatives like that, and they are desperately trying to hook up with organizations that can help them help their communities. As I speak, I am the country representative for, it's actually an American NGO that is registered in Mozambique, and we are working with menstrual cups. Yesterday, I sent a proposal. I know we are in crisis. I know it's very bad, but I did send a proposal to one of their key personnel. I'm just waiting for their answer. So there are a couple of organizations that can try to help, and although you can't really work in your area now because of the conflicts, I think you can maybe try to get some funding and maybe get people to, get like the raw materials so these people can do something to sustain themselves. So we can share that. I can share with you some contacts for Total, and then I can tell you the key areas, and then maybe you can see. And the project that I was telling you about that I sent yesterday is actually for Cabo Delgado, Afungi. And it's for girls' menstrual health. If they say yes, maybe we can also partner, Chezi. I don't know if they're gonna say yes.
I
Anyway,
love that.
That was my, yes, it's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Dulce. Let us keep in touch. I give my contacts.
Perfect. So yeah, go ahead. You
Good.
can even messenger her in the private chat, or I can put you in touch after the call. But definitely, I love that idea of you partnering, just sharing resources in country. Thank you, Dulce.
And of course, thank you, GWIM, because, if it wasn't for this group, I wouldn't even get help to Dulce. I wouldn't know her. Imagine.
Very much.
Yeah. Well, that's what we're all here for, right? To help each other. You all understand each other's situation, and just sometimes just a little idea, a new perspective, understanding that someone else can feel your pain and can try to help. It goes a long way. And Chezi, you've been such a huge help on other calls to other people. So now it's your turn.
Thank you.
Any others, ideas or thoughts for Chezi? It's so, I know it must feel overwhelming, Chezi, but I think you're, like I said, you're doing the best you can in terms of trying to, look for new opportunities, but then also know that this is a community that needs service, and how can you do both, right? Continue to meet their needs as best as you can given the restrictions, but also keep your organization and staff employed and engaged, for the more sustainable, the future. Anything else for Chezi? Well, let's do this. Let's move to Derek's presentation, and then hopefully we'll have time for some discussion that might open it up with more ideas and questions for Chezi. So let me give Derek the power to take over the screen. And while you get that set up, Derek, I'll just do a brief introduction. As I mentioned, Derek is the COO of Counterpart International, which, as you know, is a large international organization. And we asked him to speak today because unfortunately he has some experience in dealing with crisis management and serving on some committees during a crisis, and both at Counterpart and other organizations. So I'll let him tell you more about that, but he has graciously agreed to spend time with us again today, and so I will pass it over to Derek with a thank you in advance.
Thanks, Jen. Can you see my slides?
Can you all see? I have a different view, so, oh yeah, there we go. Okay.
Well, first of all, let me say thank you. I was really delighted when Sue and Jen reached out to me with an invitation to have a chance to not only meet, but talk with a really inspired group of women. You know, I really feel honored, and while I have not been to Nigeria or Mexico even, or PNG or Mozambique, I have been to Indonesia. I love it. It was one of my favorite places to visit, and so I have a few other places on my list once we can all travel again. But let me just take a moment to introduce myself in terms of my background. I've been working in industries for over 30 years. I've spent half of my life in the for-profit sector and the other half in the not-for-profit sector. I've had experience with crisis management, and it's something that you learn through experience. There were many books written on it, but the books really don't do justice until you have to kind of do it by learning. My first experience was in 2012 here in the United States. We had a hurricane called Hurricane Sandy, which basically displaced a number of individuals in the New York, New Jersey area, and I was working in New York City at the time. And our office was displaced for 6 weeks. And while I wasn't a leader of the crisis management team, I was on that. Last year, and it'll be the 1-year anniversary tomorrow, Counterpart's offices in Kabul, Afghanistan were violently attacked by the Taliban via car bomb with 500 kilograms of TNT, suicide bombers and insurgents. And thankfully, we lost no lives of staff. We did lose 4 security guards who were killed instantly during the attack. And we learned a lot in that experience. And then here we are now with COVID-19, which is another type of crisis, and all crises are different. And what I want to do today is, talk to you each about, not only my experience and crisis management, but talk through some of these points. And I want to stress, I realize that a lot of what is here sounds very much like for a large organization. I am more than happy to do all that I can to make sure I can answer questions more specific to your organizations. But really think about this as I introduce these topics from a subject matter expertise, the type of skills that you all need as leaders to help you be successful as you go through crisis management. So the first thing is really making sure you have a team. In that team, making sure you have somebody who is designated as the crisis management team leader. And while, again, you may not have individuals in the role of communications and finance and human resources and security, a lot of that will probably come and rest on some of you. But also knowing your own strengths and weaknesses in these areas is going to be important. It's also important to realize that each of you, like any CMT leader, if you become hurt, injured, or ill, you need to have a backup. You need to have a contingency plan such that if you're not able to function, that you know that the cares and needs of the individuals that you represent and support, as well as your programming, has a plan for being able to have crises addressed. So I really encourage that, making sure you have a backup. At Counterpart, we have for every member of our crisis management team, there is another member, a junior member that is copied in on all the information so that they know at each time what is happening in case somebody has to step away for a medical emergency, a personal need, or so forth. The real purpose of a crisis management team is to make sure that we are protecting our staff, duty of care. That is first and foremost. But right in parcel with that is also making sure that we have a plan to make sure that we have continuity of the business. Right? You see on there, I say all risks aren't created equal. I think all of you ladies know this. You know, from what I've learned from the conversation on Tuesday and today, you've each had unique experiences, some of which I've been able to learn from you directly, some I've learned from my conversations with Jen and Sue. But really, crisis management exists, a team exists to make sure that you have plans and you have contingency plans, and realizing that, the day you make a plan, that plan may not be implementable at the time you need it, but at least you have a framework from where to start from. And the way that makes sense is making sure that there's opportunities to really engage with your colleagues that you have on this team in terms of talking about their needs and understanding of the information that they're going to need to help them be a more successful contributor to this team. And I'll get to that in a little more detail in a moment. I strongly encourage, a lot of these things that I'm sharing with you are learned by experience. Meet in person immediately as soon as possible when you have your team. Keep your team small and keep all of your decisions off email as much as possible. Why do I say that? Because, we had an experience where it was a drill, it was a rehearsal where I spent a lot of time communicating via email and I could never stay caught up. As opposed to if I had just pulled people together and had a conversation or had people on the same phone line. It really makes a difference in terms of making sure that you have the most accurate and up-to-date information that you're responding to, and it also makes sure that you have all members of your crisis management team connected. It's really important during any crisis management exercise to assign somebody the responsibility of keeping a record of the decisions that you've made. Because that will help you make sure that you not only document what you've done, but also make sure that you have an easy platform to help communicate things later on by keeping that record. And convening your crisis management team regularly. I'll say that when we had the Afghanistan attack, as Jen and Sue know, we were meeting daily, and we were meeting daily for weeks. With COVID-19, we started meeting, weekly. And now I have two structures of team. I have a core team and I have the full crisis management team. And the core team meets weekly, and that's myself and human resources and finance. And then the full team meets once a month. Now I'll pull the full team together if there is some significant change in the environment. But right now, all of us are, in all of Counterpart's offices, both in the field, in the countries that we work, in the 20 countries that we work, as well as here in Virginia, all of our offices are working remotely. All of our offices have a responsibility to make sure they're touching base with HQ so we know of any change in the environment and country, or any instance that we need to be made aware of for staff welfare as well as for business continuity. And I'll talk a little bit about the tool that we put in place to help make that easier. One of the things that might also be helpful, and certainly when you're talking about using donors and having donor funds help to support staff time when you may have a period of inactivity, is keeping a record of how much LOE is being spent on that. We've had situations in my own experience where we've told the donor that we're in a period where we can't implement our program exactly the way we want, but we still need to keep our staff engaged so that when we are at a point where we can engage, we don't lose time. We can have a quicker response. And donors are often very sympathetic to that, and they will often work with us and work with leaders to make sure that we can maintain, or organizations can maintain, their staffing profile. Characteristics of a leader. I suspect, again, I don't know any of you ladies personally, but just by the fact that you've been involved with GWIM, I'm sure a lot of this comes true to all of you. But clearly in a crisis period, the leader needs to be calm. They need to be calm, they need to be clear thinking, they need to be practical. There's going to be a lot of information coming at you, and you need to realize that you're going to have to make quick decisions, and some of those decisions may be wrong later, but you are making the best decision that you can with the information that you have. You need to be solution driven, and you need to be trusted by your colleagues. You know this as leaders. And one of the key things that you also have as a responsibility as a leader is to be a good and frequent communicator, especially, again, depending on the type of crises. You know, here at Counterpart right now for COVID-19, we're doing a lot of communication, but it's of a different type versus a natural disaster versus a surgent attack. But staff, without that direct connection to management, whether it's seeing them in the office or their boss seeing them in the office, without that type of communication, where we're in a more remote environment, communication is essential. So either do the communication yourself or delegate it to somebody to help you do it, but make sure that leadership is being seen as sending the messages out. And most importantly, we talked a little bit about this with Chesley's experience, and that is no one to ask for help. And she rightly, you know, thanked all of you on this for the assistance that you're offering her and the benefit that GWIM has provided to her. But asking for help is not a sign of weakness. It's a sign of understanding limits. And we all, at points of high tension and high stress, need to realize that we have limits, and it's okay to ask for help. And that help can come from both within your organization and outside your organization. Following our attack, the attack that the Taliban had at Counterpart, we had a number of organizations reach out to us to, you know, basically not only express sympathy, but also to ask if there was something they could do. And we had an organization in Afghanistan that was a partner of ours that said, you can bring your staff here if you need to be able to put them in a place until they can go home safely. And do some of your staff need money in order to help them either get home or get what they need to help them get settled? And it was lovely that we've had this type of partnership. And we didn't have to go asking. We didn't have to say, can you help, knock on the door saying, can you help our staff? They were there for us. And I think in the same way, you know, leaders need to know who they can go to and when it's okay to reach out. As I said in my introduction, I've worked in the for-profit and the not-for-profit side. And in the for-profit side, I worked in the pharmaceutical and biotech industry. I'm a chemist by training. Everything I've learned about civil society strengthening and social enterprise and you know, democracy, rights, and governance has been amplified by my 6 years at Counterpart. But my thought processes, the way I solve problems and the way I tackle a problem, goes back to my scientific training. And so when I say acute crises and chronic crises, if you look these up on the internet, you're not going to see those words assigned to crises. Those are Derek labels. And it really follows when I think about how a disease is. Like an acute disease is like a heart attack or, you know, a stroke, something that you can't anticipate. And a chronic disease is something like hypertension, high blood pressure, or diabetes. It's something that you know that you have and you're going to have it. So when I say an acute crisis, it's something that really catches you off guard. Like, again, 1 year ago tomorrow when we had the attack in Afghanistan, I was lying in bed. I got a call at 5:45 a.m. saying our offices had been attacked. And then when you're having something that's more of an acute crisis, the first concern always is, you know, the first aid and well-being of staff, number one. And number two is really that communication cascade, you know, to your staff, to staff families that may have been impacted by anything that could have been harmful or deadly or put people in harm's way. You know, communication to your donor. And our donor has been fantastic in all three of my experiences where we've had crisis teams called into play. Chronic crises are those things that you can kind of see coming. We knew the hurricane was coming in 2012. We knew COVID was coming. When you watch the news, you'd see what was going on in China and how it was starting to spread in Asia and then in Europe and then, you know, in North America and Africa. It really gives you time to think about and plan. It gives you time to really engage with others and other organizations to see how they are thinking about the problem, how they are looking at solutions. And, you know, there are forums, and a lot of these are Zoom chats just like this. I participate in, you know, regularly to talk about crises and crises management, and specifically in this case with respect to COVID-19. So you have the luxury of time. It doesn't mean that your solution is going to, you know, that the solution to the crisis is going to resolve any faster, but you have an opportunity to prepare your staff more. So really it's about, again, continuity and communications. We know that we're going to be out of the office for at least 12 weeks. How do we make sure that our business processes work? How do we make sure our donor feels that we're delivering on our commitments? how do we make sure our staff maintain their feel of engagement with the organization? Those aspects of business continuity rise to the top on that when you're really in that long-term crisis mode. When I first came to Counterpart, I hired a director of security who was he was a British guy, and he was out of the UK military. And I learned a lot about security from him, and I'm grateful for that experience. He's no longer with the organization, he's moved on. But he boiled it down to 4 essential questions for any crisis. And these 4 essential questions I have tried to share with all of my peers when I have an opportunity in different form. Because I really have found them personally to be very directive and helping to guide me and helping to guide our team. And when you think about them, they're very easy, but they really help identify your current status and where you need to go. And that is, what do you know? What do you need to know? What has been done? And what do you still need to do? And what we would do at Counterpart is we'd get 2 whiteboards and we'd split the board, what do you know? And on the other side of the line would be, what do you need to know? And then on the other whiteboard would be, what's been done and what still needs to be done. And you could do this on flip charts or anything else like that. But then, when you have this bit of information down, and then you can start to say, okay, I need so-and-so to help with this. I need somebody to help with that, right? I will take this on. And this not only allows you to help document what you're doing, it really helps you to think about a work breakdown structure of what needs, what has to happen next in order to make sure that you're not only dealing with the safety and security concerns of your staff, but then you're also thinking about the business continuity aspects. I was pleased to say that after the attack in Afghanistan, 4 weeks after the attack, we were in a new office. I already had secured a new office space. I had gone out to the field to help set the office up. And then we gave our staff additional time to come back to the office. And we had over 85% of our staff return following the attack. And the office was over 85 staff, field staff, local nationals. And so it was really about thinking about these questions that allowed us to move so quickly from a point of devastation, shock, and injury to being operational again. So, I think that these questions also really help you think about how you want to communicate to your staff about the progress you're making, to your donors, as well as to your partners. So I'm a big fan of these. You may have your own versions of these. You may have your own set of questions, but I really think having something that becomes a framework is really key for the central crisis management team. Now, if we turn specifically to what we've been doing for COVID-19, it really comes down to our business teams and continuity. And what we've done is we basically have broken into, my term, buckets or categories, the way we've asked each office to think about response to COVID-19. And that's for the HQ office as well as for our offices in Mozambique and in Senegal and in Mauritania and where all the other offices that we have. And the first bucket is really leadership. And it gets back to that point I made early on that while a number of you will have responsibilities and multiple responsibilities, you need to have somebody else as a backup. So what we've asked each office to do is basically say, who's the primary person involved, and then who's their backup, what's their personal email, what's their WhatsApp, making sure we have not only a clear chain of command for each of the key functions, but we also have a clear cascade of how we contact staff. And we make sure that we keep that information up to date all the time. Making sure that we are updating, in the case of HQ, our board, but also at HQ in the field, our partners and our funders, our grantees, making sure that the grantees know what's going on. And that's also part of the responsibility of leadership, is to make sure that frequent updates to the situation in the field are being funneled to HQ, to myself and to human resources. And, that's all important, because if there's a change in the environment, we don't want to have a situation where it's at the wrong level in the organization, when a more senior level of the organization needs to be involved to make a decision. Communications, and some of this sounds like, oh yes, of course, but until you actually get in the middle of a crisis and you start to look for some of this, it gets to be hard. And we had this in our Afghanistan experience, and that is, do we have a secondary point of contact at the bank? Do we have a secondary point of contact at the utility company? because the person we know is out, or the person we know is out of the country? Do we have a secondary point of contact with our partners? So really making sure that you have a robust communication tree is really important, and it's something that we have asked each field office to document, keep locally, and also share with HQ so that we have it in case there's ever a connection issue or something like that. All of you know about the importance of banking and making sure that everything that gets done at the bank can be taken care of efficiently. Sometimes if you only have one signatory on an account, think about a redundancy there. What we have is we have at least 2 signatories in each field office. And then for all of our field offices, we've also added an HQ electronic signatory as well, in case things need to be moved or there's a problem. Or if there's an issue where the bank can't deal with something quickly enough, we try and do it from HQ. But in the case of your organizations, if you don't have a secondary signatory, I would encourage you to do that. And also, every organization wants to make sure that they're controlling their checks and balances for payments, and making sure that that they have the right processes in place to make sure that all the approvals are there. With working remotely, for example, we've had to look at does our routing and approval process need to change? Do we simplify it? And the good news here is that by simplifying it, that means whenever we go back to a new normal, which will be some combination of remote and office-based work, we can keep that new workflow process. But some cases, organizations, fortunately we're not at that point, have multiple, the form has to be signed by this person, has to be signed by this person, or needs this additional information. So really, this is an opportunity to look for ways to make sure that you're not only efficient, but also being cognizant of the challenges you have by working remotely in the COVID environment. Human resources, and this is one again that I know not every organization has a human resources specialist. I'll be honest with you, ladies, I have been the head of human resources 3 times at Counterpart for various reasons, and I know what I don't know, and I know what I do know. And so, I know for example, making sure we have clear guidance documents in the period of a crisis is important. What we created and what I wrote recently was a emergency policy, which gives management a lot of degrees of freedom in terms of being able to declare a time period for staff to work remotely without having certain approvals, or not having to worry about certain donor constraints with respect to some of the HQ-based staff starting to charge time to programs because some of the program staff aren't able to go out to the field, but we can do things virtually here, for example. So really making sure that your policies are in place, making sure that information from local government, ministries of health is being funneled in so that we can think about the implications and needs as it relates to not only staff welfare, but any health insurance or any other needs that staff may need. And then, during this whole period of COVID-19, while we're all working remotely, or largely many of us are working remotely, is thinking about, do any job roles need to change? If you have somebody, and we've had the situation in a field office where we have somebody who has, normally been a cook in a field office. If the office is closed, what do we do? Well, what we've been trying to do is think about, and in some cases we've done this, is there another role that this person can play? Can they basically, review documents? Can they file documents? Can they, consolidate things? Is there some other benefit that they can provide to the program as well? So thinking about whether some job roles need to change temporarily or long-term is also an opportunity during the COVID experience. On the programming side, I think you all know the opportunities here, and we talked a lot about this with Cheze, and that is, looking for different contingency plans, other ways to create value while delivering programming, understanding the constraints of not only, Cheze has, multiple constraints with the hostility of the environment that she and her organization were working in, but also we have the constraint of the pandemic. So we have left that to our programming team. What we've made sure is that the programming team understands that they're trying to deliver as much value to the donor, and having frequent reach outs to the donor and having conversations in terms of, here's some ideas we think it would still provide value, or here's a new funding, here's a new reprogramming opportunity. So really as you all well know, that clear and consistent communication to your donor is going to be really important. For our crisis management team, the resources that we use, because unlike some of your countries, the United States does not have a national response plan for COVID-19. We have 50 states and 50 plans, and it's quite, it would be funny if it wasn't such a serious issue. And so what we do, because we have, at least in the United States, and then I'll certainly get to the field, is, we have staff principally in 3 geographic areas: the state of Virginia, the state of Maryland, and the District of Columbia. So what we do is we monitor guidance from the national level. And we also look at resources and information being published by the World Health Organization and the Centers for Disease Control. And then we look at information coming from the local authorities, meaning the governor or the governors and the mayor, to help inform us in terms of, what is the right time to send our staff back? How do we want to make sure we're thinking about this in a way that we are not putting staff at risk? The staff have the supporting infrastructure, trains, buses that they need in order to get to the office. All of these things will be important. And, this COVID-19 crisis management team has the responsibility of delivering recommendations to the CEO or the head of the organization. One of the things I'd started early on when in this conversation is I said we'd created a tool for our field offices. And what we did is, as I said, we talked about leadership in communication, in finance, and we had those big buckets. And every office, whether it was in Dakar, or whether it's in Mauritania, or whether it's in Niger, each office was required to basically, identify a number of the redundancies and answer a series of questions. So under finance, do you have an added signatory in the account? Yes, no. Do you have sufficient funds in the bank account now? Yes, no, and so forth. And so what we did with that is, for any of those things where we got a no, it became an action item for the crisis management team to talk to programs about, to make sure that we had what we needed. To staff know where the closest hospital is, their medical facility. Has anybody checked to see if that facility will receive COVID patients or not? So all these things we were trying to do to make sure staff welfare was taken care of. So that type of document we found, and it's pretty straightforward and it's updated regularly. The other thing that we do is we wanted to make sure that the ideas of programming and the ideas of business continuity didn't commingle. And so for business continuity, it is really looking at making sure that our financial systems, our IT systems, and our policies and our communication channels are all in place and working. And then on the business side, on the programming side, it's really looking at what are those opportunities for reprogramming or proposing new work in the COVID environment, some of which, as we talked about with Chesney, in terms of maybe it's, making and distributing soap, and maybe it's a different type of wash plan, or maybe there's something else. So really making sure that the program side of the house is doing that, keeping leadership informed, and then making sure the operation side is doing their part. One of the things I also want to kind of stress here is, this whole idea of returning back to work, office-based work. It's not only the mechanical things that we have to think about, but it's also the staff's state of mind. People are going to be afraid, and there becomes a point where you have to think about the nature of your work. And this is something that we're actually actively debating right now on our crisis management team. And that is, we're starting to think about all these steps that we need to put in place to make return to office-based work safe. So, physical distancing, hand sanitizer, how many people can be in the elevator at any one point in time? How many people can be in the toilet at any one point in time? How many people can be in the kitchen? And then you start to think about, am I putting all these steps in place to social distance? Then why am I rushing back to an office environment? Some of it doesn't make sense. And really thinking about the definition of your criteria is something that, what we have done is we are going to define a core set of requirements for every office, whether it's in Washington, whether it's in Virginia, or whether it's in Niamey. And then we're going to do specific country-based requirements in consultation with leadership really understand the situation that's going on there. But I think we all need to be prepared that while it's likely that certain countries in Africa may go back faster than other countries, there is always going to be this element of staff fear and anxiety. And as leaders, we need to think about how we're going to support that. My last slide and my concluding thoughts, you know, it really kind of touches on some of the points that we talked about during Chesley's case, and that is, you know, reach out to peers, reach out, ask for help. There's a lot of good ideas out there, and there's a lot of shared concerns as well. So groupthink often can deliver solutions that we might not have come up with on our own. Really know your policies, your procedures within your organization. You know, if you need something to help support your organization in terms of billability or guidance during the emergency period, have something that you can just, you know, quickly implement. Social media rules and guidance from leadership is important depending upon the type of crises. You know, when we had the Afghanistan attack, video was taken of people exiting the bombed out building. Some people posted that on their Facebook page. Then people became immediately secondary targets of the Taliban. So, you know, in the case of COVID-19, it's not the same thing, but what it does mean is, you know, think about if there is any specific requirement or guidance that you want to put in place to help maintain the safety of your staff, and communicate and have an open discussion with them about what it means for social media. If you have business insurance, know what your rights are, what you can and cannot ask of them. At Counterpart, we don't have legal staff on, we don't have an attorney on staff, so anytime I have a legal question, I have to go outside, but you know, it's always good to try and get those things asked before you wait too long. And then, you know, what I would say as a last point is, you know, don't disband your CMT, your crisis management team too early. Go in stages. And this is a lesson learned. You know, after the Afghanistan attack, we had been meeting together for approximately 2.5 to 3 weeks daily. And then we saw things were, you know, had reached a different point. The acute nature of the crisis had died down, and we let staff go. And then all of a sudden we had these threats coming from social media from the Taliban again that we had to restart up. So I would encourage you to think about doing your disbanding of your CMT in stages. So that way you can think about what's the right trigger in order to say, all right, we don't need to do this, or we can meet less frequently. I know there's a lot there, ladies, and I fully understand that, you know, there's a lot of, some of you may have questions, some of you may say, I don't know how this really impacts me because you're coming from a big organization. You know, I'd be happy to try and answer any questions you have. My overall guidance is a lot of it is learned along the way. I think really one of the simple tools are those 4 questions, which I keep coming back to. What do you know? What do you need to know? What's been done? What still needs to be done? Those, if you even write them on a piece of paper and you share them with a couple of your colleagues, can hopefully really guide you through what you need. And as I shared with the group on Tuesday, you know, if any of you have any specific questions offline or that come later on that you want to discuss with me, Sue and Jen can certainly get those to me, and I'd be more than happy to assist you in the best way I can. Thank you.
Thank you, Derek. I'm writing the questions in the chat. What do you know? What do you need to know?
What's been done? What do you still need to do?
What's been done? And what do you still need to do? Great. Thank you so much. Before we open it up to questions, I have a question. I'm going to put up a little poll here. And my question is, do you have a crisis management team? As Derek said, maybe your team isn't 5, 6, 7 people. Maybe it's 2, maybe it's 3. You know, given the size of your organization, do you have a team of people that you consider your crisis management team? Just curious. As these roll in. We've got a 50-50 right now. Waiting for a few more people. There we go. This is interesting. I think this may be very different from what we saw on Tuesday. Do you recall, Derek?
Tuesday, I thought it was 60-40, was 60 no. Did not.
Yeah, now we have almost the opposite. Oh, nope, we're at 50-50 now. And I think that's all of the participants. When I take out the staff, I think we're at about, yeah, that's about right. So I'll end the polling. So we've got, you know, just about 50-50. We're 53% say no and 47 say yes. So a little bit of a shift from what we saw on Tuesday. Oh, actually, sorry, I thought I shared those. There's the results. It's interesting. So Derek, I asked you in the last call, it came up from the questions, what would be your top kind of, for those that are in small organizations, they don't have a team, they don't have, what are your top kind of recommendations for them? What are the essentials that they need to be incorporating or considering?
Yeah, if you don't have a team, you know, what I'd really encourage is make sure you have a lieutenant, somebody that you know can be your backup if you become unavailable or you're juggling so many balls in the air. You need to have somebody that you're partnering with. So, you know, ideally, you know, one backup, and then, you know, a 2-person team with one backup would be perfect, I think, for a number of small organizations. I think, you know, primary focus, as you ladies all know, is staff safety first and foremost. You know, and I think really what that means is making sure you have clear, you know, can you reach out to everybody? Do you have everybody's WhatsApp? Do you have everybody, do you have a phone tree? Does staff know that you know who your backup is? So that if you're unavailable, making sure that if your backup is making a decision, staff know that, you know, that person has the full authority to make the decision on behalf of the organization, as opposed to trying to track you down if you're not available. Communication, and we've all grown up hearing, you know, the importance of communication. Our mothers, our grandmothers, our fathers all told us, you know, always talk, always speak up for yourself. But communication is really key at any point in time. You know, even right now during COVID, we're sending out weekly messages to our staff. Sometimes it's a few of us sending out weekly messages to our staff. A lot of it is they just want to know that, you know, that you're there and they're there and you're thinking about them. So, you know, and that falls into the business continuity aspects. You know, really think about what are the key aspects of your business in terms of, you know, are you still able to make payments? Do you have what you need to? Are you keenly aware, or do you have somebody reminding you of your obligations? You know, and are you communicating with your funders? So it really comes down to, in my mind, Jen, you know, 2 buckets, and one of those is, you know, really the 4 questions and staff safety and security, and then, you know, the business continuity aspect in terms of know what your obligations are, making sure that you're communicating broadly, and making sure that you are thinking about how to, you know, keep your donor engaged.
Great, thank you. We're at just about the end of the session, but Derek, are you able to stay on a few more minutes?
I can stay on as long as you need me to.
Perfect. So just want to, if you all are welcome to stay and continue, we'll open it up for questions, but I did want to those of you who have to log off, just let you know, I will send out the summary like I always do. And next week, our topic is going to be helping your staff manage their emotions. So we have one of our alumni, Donna, she's an emotional intelligence coach, and she's going to be speaking with all of you about how to do that in this stressful time. So I hope you can join us next week, and then we'll be uploading all of this to the shared drive as always. So in the meantime, let's open it up for those of you who can stay on. I see Elizabeth says it's very interesting. Thank you, Derek. I guess a lot of big companies may have the crisis team, but not all the NGOs in Papua New Guinea have that. This COVID-19 is creating a sense of fear of what may happen in the next coming months. I'm glad to participate in tonight's session. It's an eye-opener. Good, thank you, Elizabeth. And it looks like Tilma has a question. Tilma?
Yes. Hi, hello, Derek.
Hello.
I have a question. I really enjoyed your presentation. Thank you for sharing, especially the term of acute and chronic, because sometimes we don't know how to define those two, and you explained it quite clearly just now. So my question was, because you mentioned about the new normal, and now it's all over in media, in even in Indonesia, the head of natural disaster response team say that embrace for the new normal. But then it goes only for for national level. It's a bit broad. It's a bit very in macro level. But for us leaders in a very small scales, we got often, even me, I got often being asked about, so what is the new normal?
Mm-hmm.
What is it for us? What is it for you? So if you were to be asked the question, what would you answer? Thank you.
Absolutely. I will first try and answer it from the perspective of a small NGO. And, I think part of what it is thinking about how we're not only engaging with ourselves, but engaging with the donor. Are we going to be wearing masks at the office all the time? Are we going to want to travel to the donor's office? And, what precautions are going to be in place there in terms of making sure that we're safe and we're keeping the donor safe? I think also there will be questions because staff have been working from home for some period of time. They'll ask the question, well, why do I need to go back to an office as well? And these are questions that we're struggling with even as a large organization as well. And I will say that it's not just Counterpart. I sit in a group of 70 organizations that meet each week, and we are still struggling with what does all of this mean? And somebody as I said in the chat, in the conversation, somebody made the comment, we're incurring all these changes and all these costs to go back to the office and be separated from each other. It doesn't make sense. Why would we do that? And, there are advantages to contact, being able to see somebody and be in the same space with them. So the new normal is, I think until we have a clear vaccine or we have a clear proven medical treatment for COVID that gives people confidence that if they were to get this, we are going to, if you get COVID, then you can be treated and you can return back to normal. Until the world has some confidence in that, we're going to be living in this awkward period of separation and mask and cleansing, and we're going to, as leaders, all of us are going to have to be a little more, I'm going to use the word tolerant, but I don't mean in a negative way, but we're going to have to be more flexible and understanding that staff are afraid. And staff may say, I don't want to be in the office, or if I have to be in the office, I don't want to sit over there because that person is coughing. And they may be coughing because of pollen or hay fever or something, nothing related to COVID. So we're all going to have to be more flexible, and we're going to have to be very patient.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Tilma. Good question. Norma has a question, and then I'll read Nancy's question in the chat here. But go ahead, Norma.
Well, a question and a comment, rather. I think this pandemic also showed large corporations and small NGOs that we must count on a fund, like a crisis fund, managed fund. And I know it's a very basic thing to do, but sometimes we forget that, and we don't prepare ourselves for this.
Mm-hmm.
And it took us all by surprise. So what I've seen here in Mexico is that as the pandemic started coming and people staying home, and that's when we tried to attend and to take care of that. But it's very difficult when you try to do it on your knees, right on the moment. So it's very important to learn a lesson from this and make sure that we have like a fund that we can reach for whatever we decide to do that. I mean, I don't know.
Great, thank you, Norma.
Yeah, I mean, my comment is, I agree, Norma, in the sense that I think there were a lot of countries that were in denial, thinking that this isn't going to happen here. It's all the way over in China, and it'll stay over in China like SARS and MERS and avian flu and a number of the other things did in the past. And of course, we saw as it started to spread, there were still governments with having a lot of denial about it actually coming to their own shores. I suspect that certain donors may be more receptive to, thinking about, depending upon the nature of your work, additional funding or additional overhead that one can put aside. And as I shared with the group on Tuesday, I am a firm believer that even though it's taken 100 years for a global pandemic, again, and I'm thinking back to the 1918 Spanish influenza and where we are today, I personally believe, and I know some of my colleagues that do as well, that we're going to see more pandemics in the future. We're not going to see less. And it's again because the world is getting smaller, more people are traveling, and I think that this is really to your point. This is a wake-up call for organizations to make sure that they have systems, and those systems can be a 3-person crisis management team, or that they have a small reserve, or they have a clear, updated, regular communication plan, and they have a clear and updated chain of command. That they have those things in place so they can pull them off the shelf. And they can make sure that they do rehearsals every now and then about these as well. So unfortunately, I think part of the new normal is not only the fact that we're going to be wearing masks and washing our hands more for a while, but I think it's also the fact that, there will be future pandemics or pandemic-like escapades that are going to have a global impact.
Mm-hmm. That's great, Dirk. I was saying on the call on Tuesday, I think another important part of the crisis management is debriefing after it happens, right? So lessons learned.
Absolutely.
So that you can improve the systems moving forward. And so many organizations or companies are now learning that we didn't have what we needed in place. And so what do we need in place? And that's what this is all about, right?
Yep.
And there is that reassurance when those the protocols are spelled out. You may never use them, but when you do need them, it's so nice to be able to pull them off the shelf and know exactly what's expected and what can be done, so that you have some sense of control in a situation that doesn't feel like you do.
I mean, I have learned something from each one, from the 2012 hurricane to the attack last year from the Taliban to what I'm learning now in COVID. And they reinforce things that I hadn't thought about, or they strengthen things that I knew we had to do, but we just need to be faster or better at them.
Mm-hmm. Great. So Nancy is asking if we can have a sample management policy, crisis management policy, especially for small-sized NGOs. And then she says, thank you. As an executive director, I've not thought about crisis management. Derek, I don't know if you have any resources available that I can share with the group. And I've been doing some research as well that I'll put on the shared drive.
Yeah, so we don't have a crisis management policy. We have a duty of care statement for all staff, which I can share that. But I'm more than happy to, if you folks will give me, a week or so to kind of put some thoughts together and share that with Jen on something I think might be helpful for you as a wireframe for a crisis management for a small NGO. I'm more than happy to do that.
Oh, Derek, that would be great. Thank you. So you're getting lots of thank yous. I've learned a lot, especially about the aspect of a new normal. Sue and I have been talking. I think this is going to be a topic for a future call, is what's next, right? What are the lessons learned for our organizations, and how can we be more resilient in the future moving forward? And so Sue and I are in the process of designing that and pulling that together, and we want to make that one of the sessions that we talk about together, because I think there's going to be some great learning and sharing on that topic. Tia says, thank you for your presentation. I want to ask, how transparent do I need to be in a crisis? To my employees, to my client, enough transparent, but not make everyone panic?
It's a really good question. And, I think what you want to do is you want to be, you all are leaders because you have good judgment as well. And so, I think part of what we are, as an example, for COVID-19, some organizations have said, we're not going back until Labor Day, which here in the United States is September. Other organizations have said, we don't know. Counterpart has said, we don't know. But what we're trying to do is maintain regular communication. So, we did share, for example, that I've shared this with our staff on Monday, that we have had one staff member in our Bangladesh office confirmed with COVID. It's the first one out of all of our global staff. And I shared with them what we're doing in terms of, supporting that staff member, reaching out to find out if they need anything, talking to their family as well. You have to be careful about making sure you don't release personal, private information. So, we did not share this person's name or anything like that, because we don't want them to be stigmatized or in any way treated differently because they've had this taken to them. But I think it's important that you strike the right balance. So when we had the Afghanistan attack, we told staff that for paid protection force guards were killed. We were very open with them on that, and we paid tribute to them, and we made donations to their families, and we dedicated a conference room in their memory, and it was a way for our staff to kind of come together around that type of loss. So I think transparent. What you want to do is you want to be transparent, but you don't want to, communicate anything that would prematurely send a message about the instability of your organization, right? Organizations are going to learn through this. And so if you don't have all the answers to some questions that staff ask, that's okay. Just say, yes, we're aware of that and we're looking into it, and be honest with them about that. But I think, especially for a small organization, the staff are most concerned about leadership and staff stability and organizational stability because it impacts them.
Great, thank you, Derek. And Nancy has a really good point here. For me, the new normal means considering diverse income streams, even as an NGO and others, to maintain your staff and basic expenses. And, and we talk about this in GWIM, that's an important for sustainability always, is to have some diversity in your funding, but especially in this situation, this new normal, right?
Yeah, I think that, especially in this new normal, a number of the large international donors, I suspect are going to follow the same model they did after the financial crisis in 2008. And that is they stopped donating because they wanted to make sure resources were available for needs in country. So I think, local in-country support services or that can bring value, this presents an opportunity for them.
Yeah, great. Any other questions or comments as we wrap up?
I see there's one question, or Happy has something she wants to ask.
Okay, go ahead, Happy. Happiness, go ahead. Can you hear us, Happiness? There you go.
Yes, I can hear. I'm typing it.
Oh, you're typing it. Okay, do you want to ask it out loud or you want to type?
Yes, I want to type.
Okay, go ahead. I'll mute you then. Let's see. Thank you, Derek. I just realized that a crisis management team not only should be there for big NGOs, but also for small CSOs. The question from Happy is, how can we help and build my crisis management team, the crisis responder?
Yeah, and I think in that, I think what we can do there, Happy, is, as I mentioned, I'll put together a short document with some key elements and some features of a crisis management team for a small organization. I'll share that with Jen so that she can share with the GWIM folks. And then if you have clarifying questions or follow-up after that, Jen can funnel those right over to me, and I'm more than happy to respond.
Perfect. Thank you, Derek. I'll let you all know when I add that to the folder, so you can be sure to download it. But if you all come across resources, as always, please feel free to add those to the folder, because I think it's a good chance to pool our resources. Yeah, good. Anything else? Great. Well, thank you again, Derek. I really appreciate your time, and both on Tuesday and today, and also for staying extra with us. So we do a GWIM round of applause. It's much louder when everyone's unmuted, but it's heartfelt.
Well, ladies, I just want to say again, it's been a privilege of mine to have the chance to meet you and to speak with you. I really applaud you and all the great work that you're doing in your local communities. Women are the change agents in any country, and the fact that you all have taken part in this and are leading organizations is terrific. So thank you. And again, I'm here as a resource if there's anything I can do.
Thanks, Derek. Okay, ladies, have a great week. Stay safe. I hope to see you next week again.
Happy birthday, Jen.
Thank you.
Happy birthday, Jen.
Happy birthday.